Through manipulating both textual and visual techniques, texts are able to persuade viewers of certain political perspectives. Both Henry Reynolds' Why Weren't We Told and Catalyst strive to achieve social equality through the representation of a political perspective on personalities and situations, the political perspective simply being that all people should be equal. As both texts not only tackle the same political issue, but even deal with the same political personalities and situations, Aboriginal peoples and frontier violence, this confirms that Catalyst is a very relevant related text to Why Weren't We Told. The integration of Aboriginal peoples with all peoples is how Catalyst represents social equality. Catalyst conveys a subtext through utilization of an ostensible purpose. Initially, through appealing to Logos, the purpose of the documentary seems to be to investigate if Turaliman died as a result of colonization. This would, in turn, prove the existence of a very controversial and heavily denied piece of Australian history, frontier violence. However, the treatment of Turaliman, while not discrediting said purpose, reveals that this archaeological journey is also used as the vehicle to present another purpose. The remains are treated just as any archaeological find would be. An allusion to the ancient Roman gladiators is used to compare the fatal wound on Turaliman's skull, raising the status of these remains to that of classic archaeology. This, along with the constant respectful treatment of the remains and a subtle use of symbolism, that of the bones of an Aboriginal being physically identical to the bones of any other human, suggests that the actual purpose is to display to viewers the humanity of Turaliman, with Turaliman being a symbol for all Aboriginal people, thus persuading viewers that Aboriginal people and culture are of an equal standing and significance within society. Reynolds argues for social equality in a different fashion. Unlike the subtle integration that Catalyst practices, Reynolds highlights the difference between Aboriginal people and other people to draw attention to the vast injustices that they, as a people, were, and in some cases still are, treated. Catalyst conveys its message of social equality through a purely objective view to convince viewers that they are relying only on fact, thus using solely logos and ethos appealing techniques to create an only authoritative standpoint. Reynolds contrasts this technique by creating more subjective text, as done through the use of authoritative and personal reflections. Through doing this, both texts are able to sway their audience on the subject of social equality. In Catalyst, the constant presence of the unnamed, non-diegetic narrator creates an informative, dependable figure, one that's word is accepted by the viewers as fact. The narrator's trustworthiness is emphasized through his use of a confident and certain tone which lacks any form of hesitation throughout. Catalyst also employs the experience and intelligence of various experts to construct a polyphonic argument, thus appealing to ethos. A talking heads technique is utilized multiple times with these experts to reinforce the intellectual credibility of the piece, which in turn builds objectivity. By positioning viewers to believe that all they say are facts and not opinions, Catalyst is able to emphasize the equality of Aboriginal people, with a confidence that viewers will take their word on it. Reynolds again takes a somewhat different approach to achieve a somewhat different result. To appeal to ethos and create a trustworthy and reliable aspect, Reynolds intersperses authoritative reflections throughout his monograph, using phrases such as "my undergraduate and honours degrees" and "sojourn in Europe" to show his academic authority. To reinforce this intellectuality, Reynolds uses ascendant to leave an impression that there is much more to his vast and remarkable knowledge and experience. Painting and sculpture, architecture, music, opera, ballet, for instance. Once intellectual authority has been established, Reynolds then goes on to make his text subjective by appealing to pathos through the use of a personal reflection. This is achieved through both the use of anecdotes, which provide a more relatable facet for the readers, and aporia, which is used to humble himself. By synthesizing objectivity with purpose, Catalyst is able to stress social equality concerning Aboriginal peoples. In a similar way, Reynolds can argue for social equality once he's established himself as a trustworthy, intelligent, and modest character. Catalyst is shown to be a very appropriate related text, as it shares the viewpoint of Henry Reynolds' Why Weren't We Told, and applies representation techniques to sway its audience just as Reynolds does. Both texts use an authoritative side to convince their audience of intellectual authority, and Catalyst is able to contrast Henry Reynolds as Reynolds goes on to make his story more personal, whereas Catalyst stays purely authoritative. Overall, Great related text, 9 out of 10, would use again.